Welcome back to the series, everyone. Today we are going to be continuing with GAC 101, Grand Arena Theory. Like I said in the intro video, none of this is going to be relating to specific counters or to specific teams. So today, we're going to be talking about developing a GAC roster. So that means we're not going to be saying, to be successful in GAC, you need to have Darth Revan. That is not the case. We're going to be looking at specific things that are true now, that are also going to be true in the future, that can help you develop your roster today. One disclaimer before we head into the real nitty-gritty part of this, and that is what anyone wants to do with the roster, I believe they should do. But these are general tips that should help anyone reach their goal. But that being said, if you want to focus on a specific faction just because you love it, you should. One of the best GAC players I know, one of his highest relic teams is Ewoks. And he's a really good player and he's able to use them well. So just remember that disclaimer before we go into things, before I come off as a tyrant that thinks you should do all of this with your roster and everyone should have the same roster. And that's not the case because that's no fun. But anyways, moving on into this, first thing we're going to look at are some do's and don'ts. And the first do and the first don't is going to be invest in characters with a long shelf life and don't invest in one-hit wonder teams. You're going to notice the do's and don'ts, they all reflect each other. They're really 1 point rather than two. And these words are nice and all, but what is a practical example of a character that has a long shelf life and a team that is more of a one-hit wonder teams? So let's go ahead and look into that a little bit. In the first column, you're going to see here a really what looks like a random team. And this is actually not a team at all. This is a collection of characters, all of which are extremely versatile. Not only do they have good kits, but they are going to be usable in multiple teams. When you are going to develop a roster that's specifically meant for GAC, these characters really have the most value because they are going to be able to work throughout time and go in and out of different teams. I think the best example of this is Grandmaster Yoda. Some people might disagree with me, and that's their right. Look, I love Grandmaster Yoda. If you need someone who really packs a punch in the Jedi Knight Revan team, he's your guy. If you need a character that's going to be really fast and start protection up on the Padme team immediately, he's your guy. If you need someone who's going to filter through 5 turns in a row with Jedi Knight Luke to get back to Heroes Arise, he's your guy. If you need someone who's going to get a massive amount of turn meter and get Jedi Master Luke's ultimate off right away, he's your guy. Love him. And the rest of the characters too, they're really versatile. Sith Trooper, you can use him in Empire lineups, or sorry, not Empire lineups, you can use him in Sith lineups, you can use him in First Order lineups. R2 filters out of almost every light side team. B1, he can go between the normal Separatist droids or maybe like a Separatist leader team, like a Newt team. And Kara can go with Scoundrels or Rebels. So you really want to focus on characters like this that not only do they already have good kits, but those kits are usable in multiple teams. Because as time goes on and these teams advance, these ones are going to be the ones that are going to be the most valuable. And over here at our don't, we have invest in one-hit wonder teams. What you are seeing here, for those of you who are unaware, this is a team that is meant to take down Darth Revan, and it can take down Darth Revan. But these teams like this, they were created for one specific reason. They were created for Squad Arena. They were created so that when Darth Revan came out and you didn't have Darth Revan, you could still use this team and take first place. That being said, these are terrible teams for Grand Arena. Absolutely terrible. This General Grievous team, I won't get into specifics, but basically you end the battle and you have 46, 47 banners, and you had to gear up 3 characters that if your opponent doesn't even leave Darth Revan, they don't even get used. Whereas if you invest in characters that are more versatile, like the first 5, even when Darth Revan stops getting put on defense for you, they're still going to be usable somewhere else. So these teams are good. Not for GAC, but for Squad Arena. Try to pinpoint them, try to avoid them, and focus more on general characters that are going to have more of a general use. So that is the first do and don't. Our second do and don't is actually going to be about mods, everyone's favorite topic. One more disclaimer, this is not a video or guide or anything about mods. I have actually been getting a lot of questions about whether or not this course is going to include mods. this is pretty much where mods are going to come into play because we're building a roster. Part of building a roster is building mods. So if I don't address something that you want, like maybe farming or sets or individual characters, please leave those in the comments below what you would want to see, and we can eventually get to that. But today, what we're going to be looking at is the ratio in which you take in mods. One of the most common sentences I hear from players in Discord or Twitch or YouTube, wherever it may be, is, I keep losing in GAC because of my mods. I don't get it. I farm mods every day. Everyone farms mods every day. Everybody gets 240 energy for free to farm mods or to farm mod slicing materials. That doesn't separate you from anyone. So what we need to look at today is, what are you doing? What are you doing to improve your mods more than your competitor is? And the main way that you're going to do this is through crystals, which brings us to our next slide. Crystal management with mods. And what you might already be thinking is, okay, this part doesn't apply to me. I'm free to play. I don't have crystals. I'm just going to forget about it. Not true. Every single person that plays this game has some form of crystal income. You'll see on this nice little chart I have here that free to play who don't take high places in arena, they are getting the crystal income, maybe about 150. Free to play with arena are getting more towards 1,000. And pay to play, I put them at 2,000 crystals per day. It can be a lot more than that, but that's just to give you an idea. So everyone is getting crystals every day, and how are you using them in your mods in relation to your gear is very important for your success in Grand Arena. So basically, the practical tip that I'm going to give here in relation to mods is the amount of crystals that you put into gear for a character or for an event or for whatever it may be. You need to match that crystal amount in farming mods as well. This is very, very important, because one thing a lot of people like to do is they see a new character, they see a new counter, they're like, okay, I need this Carbonti, I need this stun gun, so I'm gonna use 1,400 crystals to be able to get this Carbonti, and that's what's gonna make the difference. And they get that team, that's great. But you start to do this so many times that your roster starts to get really high, but your mods are getting left behind. So one way to counteract this is just to do a 1-for-1 measure. So for every crystal you spend towards a gear or towards a character, you also match that in mods. And I've given two examples here in this slide. The first one is very simple. It's very free to play friendly. You have normal energy refreshes, which can be used for gear, Kyrotech, stun guns, what have you. And then you have mod refreshes, which can just be used to get more mod slicing materials. Both cost 50 crystals. Try to match these. If you do 1 or 2 or 3 of the other, try to do 1 or 2 of the 3 as well. You want to try to match these. This will slow your progress down a little bit, but at the end of the day, you will never find your mods behind where the rest of your roster is, which is important for developing a roster for GAC. If you're getting top places in arena, or maybe you spend a lot of money on the game, the second example is probably more applicable to you. If you're going out of your way and you're buying like a fully crafted stun cuff, or a stun gun, or a Carbonti, or whatever it is, just make sure you're buying the same mod slicing materials as well. So the example I give here is a Carbonti for 1,400 crystals, but at the same time, you could buy the same exact materials to take a mod from 5A to 6E for 1,400 crystals. So it's a very simple process. Just make sure you keep that ratio. And the last thing I'm going to say towards mods is, okay, so I'm going to apply this process now. What if my mods are already behind? Where is the point I should get my roster to if I'm focusing on GAC? And that is going to be where this next slide comes into action. I have here kind of a formula that states for so-and-so character GP, you need this many certain secondary speed mods. And there are actually 3. There are 3 numbers to look at, and that will depend on your GP, because this game changes as we go out time. So the first category is 1 million to 3 million GP. So if you're probably still in the mid game, you're probably still working your way through a lot of legendary characters, but you're still in GAC. So at this point, for every 16,000 character GP that you have, you should have 1 plus 10 speed secondary. That's the metric that I'm going with. That should give you an upper hand in PvP content. If you're from 3 million to 7 million, or roughly rather maybe 3 or 4 million, you want to have 1 plus 15 for every 20,000 character GP that you have. Again, that'll give you the competitive edge that you need. And the reason why I left the 7 million plus down here with a question mark is because something that is not a reality for a lot of players, but is a reality for some players, and it's probably going to continue to grow in the future, is that eventually your roster gets to a point where plus 20 speed secondaries are what are most important, significantly more important than your plus 15s. I am not at that point, which is why it's left as a question mark. I just want to let everyone know that that is a reality that is coming one day. So that's enough for mods. Let's go ahead and move on to the next do's and don'ts. The next do we have is valorize good kits, and don't over-valorize relics. This is really, really important. This is probably, when we talk about developing a roster in my streams, this is probably what comes up the most, because I run into this team every single time. That's an exaggeration, but you get the point. On the right side of the screen, you can see that we have a Phasma team. This is something that a lot of people like to put on defense. Phasma is really just an example. The way our game functions is that we constantly have legendaries that generally ask us to gear less than desirable characters. And what do people love to do is when they're developing the roster, they're like, okay, so I have this character relict, I have their abilities, let's go ahead and invest some more and put them on defense. Don't do this, okay? Your Relic 5 Phasma is not going to be a harder team to beat if she has a Zeta, 60 mods, and you take her Relic level up higher. She's not going to get better. This team, they have old kits, they are outdated, they are not that great, you do not need to use them. The team on the left is significantly better for a GAC defensive team. While yes, there are absolutely no relics, the kits are so much more intricate. They're good at stealing banners, they're good at preventing solos. While this team probably isn't going to hold up in the majority of the game, it's still going to do significantly better than the Phasma team is. There are the number of characters that can solo that Phasma team. There are some that are just never going to lose protection banners, whereas Newt, just because he has a better kit, is going to do that. So again, when developing a GAC roster, don't feel like you need to continue to develop bad kits just because they're required for a Galactic Legend or a Hero's Journey or what have you. The next tip that we're going to look at is going to be about timeout teams. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on, no pun intended, but basically when GAC first started, and even actually now today, we still have a lot of these timeout teams. And a timeout team is essentially a team that isn't good enough to kill anything on offense, but it has enough synergy on defense to keep itself alive, so that if a less than decent player goes against it, they will likely time out. If you have these teams already geared, please use them. Like, these are decent teams to use on defense, but when you're looking at building your GAC roster, this is something that you want to avoid, because these are the first teams they're going to move from your defensive line to your bench. These are the first teams that they're going to be out their way or out the door. They're not things that you really want to go after. You want to rely on teams that can do more than just timeout. That's all we're going to say there for that one. The last thing we're actually going to go over is be intentional with your gear order. Don't just randomly gear characters in a team. This is pretty important because let's say you want to gear up your Padme team. Padme is an awesome team. She's good in a lot of different game modes. She's still relevant in GAC, but the order in which you gear her will shape how effective she is going to be early on. In this next slide, you can see that I kind of have 3 different categories for gearing the Padme team. And this actually is a metric that can be used with really any team. First one, damage dealers. These are the most important. If your team can't kill the enemy team, it doesn't matter how much your tank can hold, it doesn't matter how much your support units can help. The most important are the damage dealers. The clearest example of this is Padme versus Darth Revan. You can have a Relict Padme, you can have a Relict 3PO, you can have a Relict GK, but Gear 12 Anakin is not going to kill Relic Malak. If you have a Relic Jedi Anakin and the others are Gear 12, you have a shot against a Relic Malak. It's definitely doable. So that being said, damage dealers are first. They have to be able to kill. Jedi Anakin, in his case, he has to have the extra potency from his finisher to be able to land healing immunity, etc. The next one is going to be Taunters and Revivers. I'm not saying tanks here specifically, because some tanks don't taunt. If you don't taunt, you're not really taking the brunt of the hits, and that's their most important job. The tank's job is to keep the attacker from dying right away so that the attacker can go ahead and kill the enemy. And last but not least, we have the supports, which, for example, is Padme. Good character, one you should definitely relic, but when you're going after a whole team, she shouldn't be the first priority. She does need to survive. That is important. But at the end of the day, if your Jedi Anakin can't kill the enemy, there's no point in having a Padme that survives. So that is going to be it for today, guys. I hope a lot of these tips were helpful in developing your GAC roster. We still do have more roster development videos coming for GAC. Those will be out probably in the next couple of days. But in the meantime, if you want to catch me, I do stream on Twitch my GAC battles every Monday, Thursday, and Saturday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The YouTube videos will continue. And as always, my Discord link can be found in the syllabus for this course. So that is going to be it for today. If you would like to see anything else that maybe I missed, please feel free to let me know in the comments. And until next time, stay awesome.